checking my clock, so we are going to get rolling this morning. Glad to see you all on. Let's hit some leaderboards. Had a great week so far, and again, the day is not over. You have until midnight Eastern to turn business in, so there's still plenty of time to keep putting business in. And in fact, let's touch on last week's numbers. We had a couple of agents after after our call on last Friday. We usually pull the leaderboards around 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday. So if you go out and write business, we want to make sure we capture that and recognize those folks. So we had two writers last week after the team call. Donna Bates had one application for $554. Direct to Spencer Cushion, and Destiny O'Neill had one application, $1,402, direct to Miss Stella Dinwiddie and Team Dinwiddie. So congratulations. And again, guys, we're finding Friday afternoon, Friday evening is a great time to add business on. So don't let off the gas. If you're not where you need to be for the week, you've still got plenty of time to roll more business in. So take advantage of the Friday afternoon, Friday evening time frame to either set appointments or actually run appointments and sell. So let's talk about the leaderboards for this week. We had two new writers. Congratulations. David Willis had one application for $395 direct to Mr. John Paul Vetter. Excited to see Team Vetter running and gunning. Miss Jennifer Gray, also on Team Vetter, had two applications, $1,092, two brand new writers. Great job. We say if you can do it once, you can do it twice. If you can do it twice, you've got yourself a business started. So keep up the momentum, keep up the good work. Let's hit top 10 for the week.
Chris, I want to add one piece of detail to that. So great job to both Jennifer and David. Both brand new writers on my team this last week. And the week before last, we had 4 new writers in the agency as well. So in the last 2 weeks, my team has 6 new writers write business for the first time in the last 2 weeks. So you couldn't be more proud of this group.
That is awesome. We love hearing that. And we're going to talk about how to make that happen even more this morning. So excited for this call. So let's hit top 10. Number 10, Stephanie Stubbs had one application, $1,929 direct to Mr. John Paul Vetter. Natalia Hermit had 2 applications, $2,079 direct to Eric Sullivan. Andy McKinley had 4 applications, $2,766 direct to myself. James McKeon, 4 applications, $2,453 direct to Mr. John Paul Vetter. Terry Myers had 5 applications, $3,529 direct to Stella Dinwiddie. Diane Newman had 6 applications, $4,518 direct to Spencer Cushion. Mr. John Paul Vetter himself, leading from the front, 5 applications, $5,280 direct to myself. Top 3, Stella Dinwiddie, 11 applications. App count leader for the week. That is awesome. 11 applications, guys. That is huge. $5,387 direct to myself. Congratulations, Stella. What a week, and I have a feeling it's probably even not over. We had Mr. Lionel Anderson, number 2 spot. 4 applications, $6,232 direct to John Paul Vetter. Congratulations, Mr. Anderson. He is really coming on strong, so excited to see that. Number 1 for the week, no stranger to the number 1 spot, Mr. Spencer Cushion. 7 applications, $10,269. That is, and Spencer is direct to myself, and that is not at all unusual because Mr. Spencer has been in the $10,000 club many times for the week. So awesome. To see Spencer at the top of the leaderboards again. So guys, quick announcement, keep an eye out for new contest. Will be rolling out sometime over the weekend. I'm working on kind of some of the final numbers and details. We'll be posting that up on the Crew app. So keep an eye out for that. We want to do a big push. We've already had we got a great month going so far. But let's keep the momentum going. Let's finish out strong. Reminder, Obviously, week after next is Thanksgiving. Guys, be very intentional about your planning and your scheduling. Obviously, Thanksgiving is at the end of the week, so from a business standpoint, don't allow that to derail your production. Make sure that we really load up this week, and then the first part of next week. Get that in. Be intentional around the holidays. It is a great time to be out selling. We got a lot of people who are thinking about family, around family, those responsibilities. So take advantage of that, and don't let the holidays be an excuse for you to miss your mark because you just didn't plan ahead. So, all right, enough about that. Let's get into the meat of the subject. This call is going to be geared towards those of you who are wanting to build an agency. So if you're on as a sales role, I apologize. You're probably going to get bored. But a lot of people are attracted to our business because of the opportunity to build something bigger than themselves. And think of it. A lot of times I talk about this. I love the analogy that this is a franchisable system. But guys, if you've ever looked at a franchise, if you've ever priced a franchise, it starts on the low end. You can probably get a little cheap franchise that's not going to generate a lot of revenue. So, about $20,000, maybe $25,000. But it goes up from there substantially. And the more you want to make, the more you have to invest. This is a turnkey business. What we have with Symmetry Financial, where you can come in, and again, we're set up to make sure that people who want to sell and that's their focus, man, you can win big time here. So especially if you're new to the team, you're still kind of figuring this out. The sales opportunity is phenomenal. You won't find a better opportunity, in my opinion. But our system is optimized for those who are entrepreneurial, who want to build something that can be ongoing, something that can take on a life of its own. And that's what the Symmetry system really offers you. And instead of a franchise where you got to show up at the front door with a $25,000, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million check just to buy the name and then spend additional money to get it going, guys, all we charge, we don't charge this, the state that you're in charges this, is the cost of your license. And that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously we have other overhead, but all the other overhead is optional. You don't have to buy leads. Their leads are available. Most people buy leads because it's a great resource, but it's not required. You can actually do this business without ever buying a single lead. So, but I don't want to get off track too far, but I want to make sure that I set the stage that this is a business that you can start on a shoestring and actually build a business. I want to talk about that this morning. And we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. And you might say, well, okay, 2020 has been kind of a crazy year, and I know you're wanting to get out of it as quickly as possible, but why are we talking about New Year's resolutions? Well, guys, New Year's is typically when everybody sits down and assesses their life and say, okay, last year's behind me, this year's ahead of me, here's what I'm going to do to really seize the day in 2021. And for a lot of you, that's going to be, I want to make big gains in my agency development. I want an agency by the end of 2021. I want to be able to look back and say, we are at the doorstep, or we have already achieved agency ownership. And that ownership contract from Symmetry Financial Group, where you now have your own business entity. It's a legal business entity that you can pass on to your family. You could at some point retire from it. You can actually sell it once it's built. But guys, if you want that in 2021, and that would be your New Year's resolution on January 1, 2021, you got to start now. That has to start right now with activity. And here's why. Guys, agency building and recruiting runs in 90-day cycles. So the activity that I put in today, any calls I make, any interviews, any ads I post, I will not see anything out of that, statistically speaking. Again, there's always exceptions to the rules. Statistically speaking, though, minimum of 90 days. And quite frankly, to be honest with you, it's more like 6 to 9 months before you really start seeing that momentum build. And that's a big trap. And we're going to talk about that because too many people will go out and here we get in the salesman mindset. Because if I jump on the phone this afternoon, I can have appointments even today. I could still have appointments by tonight and go out and write business. That's instant gratification. Within 24 to 48 hours, I got to have apps coming in. Guys, the building side is much more labor intensive, and the reward, you've got to be very, very patient. Okay, but we're going to talk about that. There are ways to shortcut that process. There are ways to make that more efficient and get better results, but you have to be very intentional about that. Okay, so rule one, let's go by kind of step by step. And guys, like I said, if you're wanting to build an agency, you better be taking notes. If you're not taking notes, I would go ahead and jump off the call right now because you're wasting your time. Not trying to be very blunt, but I am being blunt. If you're not going to write this down and follow this is not going to work because the agency building side, again, it's not as simple as picking up a phone call, setting an appointment, writing an app. This is a detailed, drawn out process, and we're going to try. Stella has got her pen. So she is ready to rock and roll, and she always has a pen in hand. So that is awesome. I love that. Take that example. Okay, so rule one, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we need to address it. You have to get your own personal business in, guys. I know we're not going to talk about sales this morning, but if you're wanting to build an agency, it's kind of hard to have a business if you have no revenue. And you're not going to have any revenue off the team building side for again, a minimum of 90 days, probably 6 months to a year before it's anything significant. So you're not going to live off that. So don't think I'm going to close out my appointments. I'm going to jump on the phone, I'm going to recruit a bunch of people, and that's going to float me. That's not going to happen. If it does, you beat the odds. Congratulations, but that's not going to happen. So you have to be very intentional about your schedule. And look, here the other side of this is you're going to have to demonstrate not only to yourself but the people that you're bringing on that you know how to do this. And you don't have to be a high level performer. I've seen a lot of people who have come in, some of the biggest names in the business, and I can list them off, that never even achieved top producer, let alone elite or any of those top levels on the production side. That's not required. All that's required is that you go out and do the process. Set the appointments, make sure you're paying your bills, and guys, treat this like a business. So as you're generating revenue, okay, well, think about what's my overhead. So if you're buying leads, put that in the overhead category. You've got to generate your living expenses. So figure out what that number is, make sure you're hitting that target. But you also need to assign a number to your recruiting, to your agency building. It's a business. It's going to take funding. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, we have control over that, and I'll get to that. But make sure that you are funding your business by being consistent on the production side. Okay, and we'll talk about scheduling again as we go through this. So I know I'm throwing out a lot of stuff. Don't worry, I'll get to each of these bullet points, but we're breaking it down piece by piece. Okay, so let's talk about getting started in this business, especially if you're fairly new. I'm going to give you guys the fastest way to a agency ownership and the fastest way to a strong agency and a fast growing agency. And hands down, I can prove it with the data and with the numbers, always starts with warm market recruiting. People people that you've come in contact with, and there's a misconception around warm market. Warm market, a lot of times people think, well, it's my closest friends, it's my family. And that qualifies, don't get me wrong, that qualifies, but it's not limited to that. And too many times we're not creative enough to stop and sit down and think about our past and our history, okay? So I encourage everybody to sit down and take out a sheet of paper or a notebook and write down a minimum of 100 names of people that you've come in contact with. Now, here's the thing, and again, if your friends and family, again, they qualify, but we're not digging deep enough if we stop there. Okay, it can be somebody who you worked with at a job 20 years ago. and you've not talked to them since, but you remember when you worked with them, they were really a quality individual. You liked working with them. They seem to get stuff done. They seem to be a quality individual. I'm just giving that as an example. It could be somebody you went to school with, college with. Again, it doesn't have to be somebody that you know or that you had a lot of contact with currently. It could be somebody that you've had contact with in the past. They stick out in your mind as a quality individual. Warm market also could be, somebody that you had a connection with, but it wasn't really a deep friendship. It's just somebody that you knew, a friend of a friend of a friend, or something like that. Again, we're not creative enough when we sit down and put these lists together. So, guys, be very diligent sitting down and thinking about who do I know, where have I worked, where have I gone to school, who are those people, where do I, churches in the past that I've attended, civic organizations that I've been involved with. Really dig down deep in your mind. Now, the reason I'm really spending a lot of time on this is, again, I'm going to back this up. If you look at the fastest growing agencies in the company, bar none, the fastest, biggest growing agencies have been warm market agencies. So a lot of you have seen videos by the Smith brothers and twins. Guys, that was a warm market agency. The Miller brothers, if you were on the conference here a couple of weeks ago, we saw several of the Miller brothers. That entire organization came out of a company that closed down, and one of those guys found Symmetry, Ryan Miller, and said, hey, this is what I want for my future. But he also realized that he had a network of people who had already shown success in another business entity, and he started going after those people. Okay, so so that's just a couple of examples. Kyle Kimbrell is another name. In fact, for those of you who were in a training here about 6-9 months ago, there's actually what we call the Kyle Kimbrell approach. It's a very simple question. Either text or Facebook message, or you can call and ask people one question. Are you open to making additional income if you can make it fit into your existing schedule? Okay, simple question. If you get a yes, all you do is send them an overview. Hey, check this out. May or may not be of interest to you, but here's some of the details. Check it out. Guys, that is the simplest thing in the world. All of us on this call can do that. Okay. Now, and again, Kyle Cabral is another completely warm market. Never ran an ad in his first year. They probably do now, but never recruited cold market. $6 million team in his first year. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but guys, $6 million in year one. We've got agencies who have been here since the beginning of Symmetry who haven't reached that level yet. We have agencies that have been here almost 10 years who haven't grown to that point yet. Not because they're not working or not trying. And that, it's not to say that they're doing anything wrong. It's just to say, if you capture lightning in a bottle and you happen to have one of those people in your past, and we all do. That's the thing about it. We all do. It's just, are we willing to reach out and dig through and turn over enough rocks? Because here's the dirty little secret about recruiting and warm market recruiting. Because we think, well, warm market recruiting, these are my friends. They should want to listen to me and do what I do. I got news for you guys. A lot of them are going to say no. And I'm sorry. That's probably going to hurt your feelings, and you may need to go sit and cry about it. But a lot of them are going to say no. And that's okay. That's just like calling, and every week we call through 100 leads and we get told no a lot. And your friends are going to tell you, guys, with friends, the thing about friends is you can always come back to them. No today does not mean no tomorrow or next week, next month, next year. A perfect example of that is if you've ever heard John Ziller talking about recruiting Dave Lappin. Dave was one who already told several others from that network that, hey, I'm not really interested. John Ziller gets on the phone, cusses them out, and tells them to come on board. Now, I don't recommend that's how you recruit, but if you know or are spending time around John Ziller and Dave Lappin, you'll understand why that works for them, and and they can get away with it because anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the
Perfect
point
example is James McKeon, Chris. Perfect
exactly.
example.
Yeah, James. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'll say a perfect example is James McKeon. You know, I reached out to James McKeon, you know, shortly after I found this opportunity when I was going through my list of my past live contacts and reaching out to folks that I thought were exceptional and had a high propensity for success here. And the timing just wasn't right. He was in a good place at ADT, and he's on the call now. You can chime in if you'd like to, but the story, I mean, it just wasn't a good time for him. And he was doing well. Everything was rolling along and he was in a good space, you know, and just, you know, wasn't interested at the time. Well, I kept in contact with him over the period of probably 18 months, you know, sending him screenshots of the leaderboards and my production and what we were doing and things like over here and what it was like. And then out of the blue, I ended up, no, Stella, I didn't curse him out. I saw your message on there. I have since then, but not at that time. I wanted to get him in, sucker him in first, and then I curse him out daily, but he deserves it. So, but the point is, it just wasn't a good time, right? So things had changed in his world October of last year, and just again out of the blue, I shot him that text of the screenshots of my production, and from what he'd shared when he was in the drive-through, I think a Whataburger or something with his wife, and looked at the text message and showed his wife, you know, and then pulled over in the parking lot, called me, and we talked in, and the rest is history. And you know, here he is and killing it on the way to already recruiting folks under his team and working towards key leader, and you know, writing 25-30 grand a month in his own pen and still learning. And remember, the first 6 months of this year was part-time for him as he transitioned, so he's only been full-time for a few months now, you know. So but the point is, that's a perfect example of seeds planted in the summer of 2018, how that bared fruit now in 2020. And James McKeon will break out as an agency owner in my organization this next year in 2021.
Yeah, but think about what would have happened if John Paul had called him, got the no, and then never followed up again. You know, you said no today doesn't mean no tomorrow or next year or 2 years, 5 years from now, guys.
He would have really been missing out on all my phone calls.
I've got you blocked, man. I got to use a burner phone for you now, man.
That's great. So yeah, I mean, that's important to understand though, is this process takes time. It doesn't matter what strategy you use, it just takes time. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about so with the recruiting process, let's say you one of the big traps with warm market, I think I see a lot of times is, especially if you're really close to them, we'll see somebody get on the phone and just puke symmetry all over them. Hey, this is the greatest opportunity. You need to do this. And let me tell you all about this. And here's what I'm doing, and blah, 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 blah. And they overload them with information. And guys, follow the system. There's a system in place to do this. It's a very short initial contact. You know, I love the Kyle Cabral approach. Are you open to making additional money if you can make it fit into your schedule? That's it. We don't go into the nuts and bolts and how this works. Guys, leverage the system to make it work for you. So there's several overviews. I have one. I know John Paul has one. Stella, you know, we have overviews. There's ones that you can pull off of the Symmetry webpage. You know, it can be as simple as the little 3-5 minute cartoon video that Symmetry puts out, or it can be something that's a little more detailed. But send that as your way of opening them up to the idea. Let them self-discover. Okay, don't try to tell them why this is the greatest thing. They have to come to that conclusion themselves. So let's not, yes, Stella, go ahead.
And I just wanted to say, don't forget to mention it when you're helping families, because two of my awesome people are, recruits from just being in the home. Tasia, who I love and adore, and then Dave Moan, who's just started. So, just got licensed. So that's also just another little 2 cents.
And that's perfect. I mean, that and we would fit that into warm marketing, because that's somebody that you've connected with. you've spent some time with them. Again, warm market doesn't mean your bestest, dearest friend from way back when. It means anybody that you have a connection with that if you were to pick the phone up and call them, they would recognize your name, even if it takes a little bit of prompting. You know, hey, you remember we worked together or we met here. If they can associate that, that's what we consider warm market. So when you talk to those people, again, use the system. So when you send them the overview video, you know, send it with instructions. Hey, check this out. And then if you like what you see, get back to me. Put the ball in their court, and have them follow up with you. Because if they see it, they like it, they will be motivated. They'll follow up with you. Okay. And when they follow up with you, again, don't try, especially if you're new and you haven't done interviews, rely on those of us who've been around for a while. Set up a 3-way call. That also instead of you putting the burden on yourself, if you're brand new in this, it's really important that you do that. You know, let us step in and provide that subject matter expert and the authority of having been in this business for a while to be able to handle those curveball questions that they're inevitably going to come up with, and they should. Hopefully, they really dug into it and come up with some great questions. Okay. Now, outside of that, here's the thing, guys. We've seen. I've talked about all the teams that have grown through warm market recruiting and grown very fast. That's not a guarantee. I'm saying if you want a higher odds of getting a fast growing team, start warm market. But let's face it, again, you're going to get a lot of your folks that you talk to that really are not interested, and that's fine. That means you're probably most likely going to have to supplement with cold market recruiting, and that is running ads. Guys, here's the secret. Jacob told me this when I started. We started out with Craigslist. I mean, that's how crude it was. When I started, I think it was even worse than before I started. And I've heard people talking about running newspaper ads. I mean, you're talking about going back to the Stone Age, so to speak, of insurance recruiting. In fact, I heard Casey talk about running an ad every week, like a $1,000 ad or something like that in a major city newspaper. But I started out on Craigslist. But the thing that I did, it wasn't the most effective tool out there. Still a lot of people use Craigslist and have success with it. So I'm not knocking it. We can talk about the pros and cons, but I'm not going to get into that today. But the point I'm going to make here is the thing that Jacob told me in our first conversation. Jacob Poe, top of our hierarchy. I had a conversation with him in my first month in the business. I told him, I said, Jacob, I want to be an agency owner. I mean, that's why I'm here. Yeah, it's great that we've got all these, these products that we can sell and make a lot of money in sales, but I'm here to own a business. And he said, okay, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to run ads every week. Do not miss a week. You're going to run ads every week. And at the time, we were doing 3 to 4 Craigslist ads a week. And by that time, Craigslist was starting to charge. It used to be free, but they were charging. So we paid for our ads every week, 3 to 4 ads a week. Now, since then, we've expanded beyond that. Let's talk a little bit about those resources: ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Career Builder, Facebook. Guys, you can run posts on Facebook. You can either post job ads or do targeted marketing on Facebook. That may take you a little time to figure that out, but that's available. Indeed. Now, a little side note on Indeed. There's something happened years ago, and I don't know what happened, but basically, Symmetry and Indeed, Symmetry won't recognize Facebook, Indeed won't recognize a Symmetry ad. If they see Symmetry Financial Group in the ad, they'll block you. So the workaround on that is the Menefee agency is hiring. Whenever I post an ad on Facebook, the Menefee agency is hiring. I don't even talk about Symmetry. Okay, and I don't even include a link in that ad. I'm going to generate resumes from that. Indeed, here's the thing. I'm not going to recommend any of these platforms, because what I found is some people have better success on one platform than another. And I think it a lot has to do with their comfort level and different types of technology, different platforms. So I don't want to give you, I've used them all, and I don't want to give you guidance. I kind of have some that I lean more towards, but that's me. That's what I like. The important part is you have to be consistent, guys. And so I'm going to go back to our idea of buying a business, buying a franchise. Because if you want to buy, so think about this industry. You can build an agency that's going to pay you a six-figure passive income, or even a seven-figure passive income. But if you were to go out and buy a franchise or a business that's going to pay you a six-figure income or a seven-figure income, you have to understand how much it would cost you to invest in that franchise to be able to generate that kind of revenue. Guys, you're not getting into that on a shoestring budget. You're going to have to invest heavily. The reason I talk about that is if you're going to recruit and build an agency, if you want to build a big agency, you've got to create a budget, guys. This is not something where you can just, hope that, I run a posting on my Facebook and all of a sudden I have all these people flooding in because I did it for free. And now I have an agency built. If that works, great. If you figure that out, you crack that nut, hats off to you, run with that and do it. But the reality is if you're going to recruit cold market, you're going to have to invest in your business. And so I'm going to throw some numbers out here because quite frankly, the more you invest, the higher your odds are of succeeding more quickly. Okay, I mean, it's just the rule of numbers. I mean, same thing, you buy more leads, you're going to write more business if you're going to work them. So the same thing on the recruiting side. I've seen recruiting budgets just kind of in the circles of those people who are performing at a high level in recruiting, 500 a month, 1,000 a month, 2,000 a month. Now you say, gosh, 2,000 a month, that seems like a lot of money. It's $24,000 a year. Would you spend $24,000 if it paid you 50? You got to think about it. You got to think like a business, like an investor. If I put $24,000 in the stock market and I knew I had a high probability of returning 50, guys, that any stockbroker would flip. I mean, they would be, they would be ecstatic. They'd be calling all their clients and telling them they were the greatest investor in the world. But yet we have a mental block that we can't put $2,000 a month into our business to bring in high quality people. You've got to think about this too. This is not a get rich quick. This is not selling potions and lotions and we're going to get this person who gets this person and all of a sudden we just got this runaway steam train that, is going to, is going to blow up our business. That may happen, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But from a business standpoint, you have to invest in your business. You have to be willing to put up the money. And guys, if you don't have $2,000 a month right now, I'm fine. That's not my point. I'm just saying you're going to have to invest something in your business. And it's okay to start out small, but that's where you have to treat it like a business. As your business grows, as your revenue grows, you have to reinvest more back into your business. Okay, so you may start out with a $200 a month budget, but then bump it to $350, and then bump it to $500, and then $750 and $1,000, and so on. Okay, that's just part of running a business. So treat it like a business. Watch your expenses. Don't spend money frivolously, and just pay attention to what's performing. That's why I threw all those platforms out there, and there's probably several others that you can look into. Watch what performs best for you and invest there. And be creative. Start small. That's okay. If you have to start small, but be consistent. Now, and guys, you're going to hear me talk a lot about this, and I try to talk a lot about it because this is the single key to the reason why people do not have success in team building is they are not consistent. I don't care if you have $100 a month budget. You have to be consistent with that. Okay, so just do the thing every day or every week that's going to get you where you want to go. And it may start off as a slow train. I like the book, The Slight Edge. We talk a lot about it, and it's very applicable. If you haven't read that, to the recruiting side of this business. It talks about the flywheel, getting the flywheel going. all the energy that it takes to get that momentum, to get that to start to turn. But once it starts turning and it kind of gets its own momentum, if you will, it takes off. But in terms of our business, like I said, your minimum 90 days on your activities, probably more like 6 months to a year before you really start to see that flywheel take off and start its own momentum path. So now you can control that by your level of activity. So the more you're willing to put in, as far as sweat equity and elbow grease, the more you're going to get out of that, even if you have a limited budget. Okay. So let's talk about what does that actually look like in terms of what do I need to be doing on an activity basis every week. Well, again, first we talked about rule one is get your business in. And I like what Casey and Brandon talk about at all our meetings, the 20-20 rule. $20,000 a month, guys. That's $5,000 a week. So that's going to be setting your 15 appointments a week, 15 to 20 appointments a week to get your 5,000 in. Got to do that every week. When you write that 5,000, and you may need more. If you need more, you're going to have to do more. But you're going to take a portion of that and reinvest it back in your business. That's part of your revenue that you reinvest back in your business. But the 20-20 rule is write $20,000 a month and submit 20 onboardings to the home office, or excuse me, submit 20 onboardings for contracting. Now, in the beginning, again, if you're just ramping up, don't panic. You may not have 20 right out of the gate. It takes a little while to build that up. And that's what a lot of people miss. And that's why I keep hammering on consistency. Because I've had people, in fact, I had a guy call me last week that I talked to in January of this year. He reached out to me. And again, it was a timing thing. I really liked him. Sharp guy. We had a great conversation back then. Really thought he was going to move forward. And then things happened in his life. COVID kind of caused a little bit of panic in his situation. And he just, he kind of shut down and took care of what he needed to take care of at that time. And that's fine. I mean, a lot of people had to do that. But he reached back out to me. In fact, I've had that happen twice. People that I talked to about a year ago, roughly 9 months to a year ago, have reached out to me. So again, that those are seeds, kind of like the warm market conversation. Those are seeds that were planted months ago that just now came through, popped up. And I don't know that they'll actually develop into anything. Don't get me wrong. I'm not counting those. We'll talk about that in a second. But you have to have a lot of seeds planted in this business. So how do you get to 20 onboardings? Okay. Keep in mind, number one, your activity. You can do that through personal activity. You're going to be burning the candle at both ends, guys, and there's no other way around it. I can't sugarcoat it for you. You're just going to have to flat out work hard. That's going to be some late night conversations. There's going to be interviews, especially if you're on one coast. That probably means you're either getting up super early or staying up super late to have conversations with somebody across country. And so leverage that. I mean, leverage the fact that you got a difference in time zone that's going to allow you to have conversations with people at a different time zone, but it's going to work out for them. It means that you have to get a little uncomfortable with your schedule. You're going to be out of balance for a little while, but you have to be out of balance to get back into balance. Okay, so 20 onboardings. Let's break down the numbers. To get 20 onboardings, you have to have 40, so double that at least. And this is all averages. Some may do better, some may do worse, but you have to have 40 final interviews. In other words, where you had that conversation and you got down to the point where you said, hey, I think this makes sense. Let's move forward. So you have to have 40 of those a month. Okay. Well, to have 40 final interviews, you have to have about 60 set. Because just like in our appointment setting for sales, when you set an interview, doesn't mean they're going to show up. Okay. And if they don't show up, that's not somebody you want to work with. I mean, that seems kind of common sense, but that, you know, that saved you the time of having to work with that person. So if they don't show up and they don't have a good reason, or they don't follow up with you, there's a reason why you don't want them on the phone. Okay.
That tells you everything that you need to know. That in and of itself is the interview.
That's it. They just disqualified themselves. So 60 set means 15 a week minimum, guys. Okay. That means you're going to have to be very time disciplined to set 15 interviews a week at a half hour each. That's quite a bit of time. And again, I'm talking about minimums. You may have to put more in. Okay. Be consistent. I come back to consistency all the time, because that's the only way these numbers are going to happen. So how do you generate 60 appointments a month or 15 a week? Well, again, with the more market, I mean, I'd be getting on that, you know, texting every day, sending Facebook messages, emails, whatever you got to do to get those people in the pipeline. But on the cold market side, talk about that specifically. When you're running ads, there's a number of different ways to generate leads. Number one is calls. Picking up the phone. Hey, got your resume, got your application. And guys, I'm going to give you a quick tip here on calls. That first call, you want to control that. Do not get dragged in a conversation about the system. That's what the overview is there to do. That's to leverage your time and prevent you from getting stuck on a conversation with somebody that you spend a half an hour on, and all of a sudden they realize they have to buy leads. They're like, oh, sorry, I'm not interested. Well, you just blew a half hour out of your day. Okay, so don't do that. Hey, John Paul, I just got your application. Like what I see. I think there's a possibility that we could work together, but in fact, I'm just in between appointments. I only got 2 or 3 minutes here, so I don't have any time. Let me ask you a couple questions. You know, tell me a little bit about your background. You know, we're gonna, you know, maybe hit on a couple of things, but again, I'm not going to spend any time there. Then I'm going to say, look, again, I just had a couple minutes. I've got to get into another meeting, another phone call, whatever. Let me send you some information. Okay, I'm going to send you a link. Watch that overview, and if you like what you see, follow up with me. Put that ball in their court. You follow up with me. Doesn't matter if they email you back, call you back, text you, I don't care. You can put that in your email, but you follow up with me. Okay? So tell them to contact you after watching. So you can do that through a call, initial call. Don't get trapped into a long drawn-out conversation. You can do that through a email. Now, one of the things I will tell you, just kind of as a little side note here, ZipRecruiter specifically, and maybe with the other platforms, I'm not sure, but ZipRecruiter does give you the opportunity to email from the platform. My only problem with that is I noticed ZipRecruiter, when you apply on ZipRecruiter, they email blast everything to the applicants. I mean, they get a ton of email from ZipRecruiter. My concern, what I've observed, is I think a lot of our stuff gets lost in the noise. So I like to take that resume, go in, pull out that email address, and email them directly from my email instead of from the ZipRecruiter platform. Because I think a lot of stuff goes into spam. That's just my personal opinion. Now, that could take some time, especially if you're running a lot of ads. One workaround on that is there are ways to do a bulk download. So you could take all the resumes that you've gotten on a single day, you can download those and put those into a email platform like MailChimp or GetResponse, and use those to send out 5, 10, 20, 100 emails at one time. So you're not having to go through and manually emailing each and every person, okay? So, and I know this specifically about ZipRecruiter. I'm sure there's probably, you know, Career Builder or the others, you could probably do that. But I know for a fact with ZipRecruiter, you can do a bulk email or bulk download of everybody that's applied to your position over a certain time frame, whether that's a day, 7 days, you can kind of choose that time frame, okay? The last one that I'll mention, and we've had a lot of success with this, it is a little bit time consuming, but text. When you get an application in, if you've got a number, most people are putting their cell phone numbers, shoot a text, hey, got your resume in, like what I see, would like to chat with you. Can you take a look at this video put the link in there. This is a little bit of information about our company. And if you like what you see, follow up with me. And I would keep that one pretty short. I would probably use that little 3 or 5, I think it's actually a 5-minute cartoon video that Symmetry puts out. You can find it on their homepage. You know, that little work with Symmetry video. I would shoot that out to them and see if there's interest there. So from that, we're going to set our second interview. In the second interview, that's where you spend the time. Okay, that's where you're going to spend your time on digging in with this person. Now, for those of you who are new to recruiting, that second interview, your first 3 second interviews, so that's not confusing saying a bunch of numbers together. Your first 3 second interviews need to be with your mentor. You know, either agency owner, team leader, whatever. You need to set that up on a 3-way call. They're going to run that call for you, but you're going to be listening and paying attention and writing down notes on how that call progresses. Now, there are some second interview scripts, and we can share those with you. You know, so if that's easier for you, I'll talk about my process here in a second, but I would definitely get with your upline, schedule those first 3, have them run them. Go ahead and schedule the next 3 as a 3-way call, but you're going to run those and they will listen to you and then help critique and tweak that as you get done with those interviews, okay? So that you can then move forward running your own interviews, okay? So we have some scripts for second interviews. I can share those, post those up on Crew, and I'll do that here after we get off the call. I'll tell you, my outline, guys, I don't use a script. Personally, I like the dialogue approach. Let me tell you how it goes. So if I get so, you know, when Stella sent her application in, I called her up. First question I asked, Stella, you know, hey, great to talk to you. Have you had a chance to watch the overview I sent you? Guys, if they haven't watched the overview, we're wasting our time. So cut it off. If they haven't, okay, I understand your life gets crazy, gets busy, whatever, but there are some important parts that we need to discuss that are covered in that overview. So I'm going to ask you to go back and watch that and then get back with me once you have. Okay? So number 1, question 1, have you watched the overview? Here's my second question. Okay, so watching the overview, what did you see that made you reach out and schedule the interview? What did you see? What really appealed to you? So what I'm looking for there is I'm looking for their hot buttons. I'm looking for those things, and they may say, well, the opportunity to own a business. Okay, I'm going to file that back because we're going to talk about it. That's where we're going to build our conversation with them. I'm going to build my conversation around what their response is. They may talk about leads. They may talk about whatever, the opportunity to make money through sales. I'm not going to try to force on them my message. I'm going to listen to what their interest is, and we're going to build my message around what their interest is, okay? So what did you see and what prompted you to reach out? That's question 2. Question 3. Okay, well, so let me ask you this. Going through our information, was there anything that came up that either raised more questions for you, or maybe you just want to dig in a little bit deeper to better understand? So what that third question does is that it tells me what are my objections, or where's the points of confusion or uncertainty around this. So with those 3 questions, now we can start having a conversation. From that point, I'm going to do kind of a high-level overview about the Symmetry system. And I'm going to keep it very high level. I'm just going to talk about the fact that this is kind of like a franchise, but all in, you know, there's not a franchise investment. It's the fact that we have all the tools and everything that you need to be successful in one package. And whether you're in sales or whether you're building an agency, this thing is turnkey and you can be successful. Then I'm going to swerve into their specific interest or questions. So I'm going to touch on those 2, and we're going to have a conversation around what attracted them to it, what they really like, what they identified as the thing that they resonated with, and we're gonna answer those questions or objections. Sometimes they won't have an objection, they won't have a question. They'll just say, I really liked everything I heard. I kind of like to dig into everything a little bit more. That's why I'm on the call, and that's fine. But I still want to know what their hot buttons are, because that's where we're going to build our conversation. So every conversation for me goes the same, but the topic is a little bit different. It could be around building an agency. It could be around sales success. It could be around the lead system. All right. So a couple of notes on that second interview, guys. No more than 30 minutes. If you're taking longer than 30 minutes, you're taking too much time. Because here's the thing about the overview: should give them a pretty good foundation. They should pretty much understand everything there is to know about symmetry, and then just have a few questions about some of the particulars. Okay. What are you looking for when you're having those conversations? Well, number one, do I like them? If there's friction, if you're talking to them and you find yourself getting annoyed, well, that's going to be a problem, because guess what? When they're on board and they're calling you for questions, you're going to be annoyed. It's just what's going to happen. Okay. So do you like them? Does there seem to be a connection or rapport? Are they the kind of person that you want to work with? Does it seem like they've got that that drive or that fire, and do you see yourself working? Do they seem motivated? If you start talking about the fact is this is commission sales or the leads, and the lead system does require investment. If we get a lot of resistance there, probably a pretty good indicator this is not a good fit for them. And here's what you want to be willing and able to do, and that's to say no, but do so in a polite way. John Paul, I had a great conversation with you. Here's my concern: I don't know that this is going to be a good fit for you. When we talked about the leads, it didn't get the sense that you were really comfortable with investing in yourself. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times they're going to own up to it. Yeah, I know the leads thing, that I don't know that I can really. I'm concerned that if I invest in leads, am I going to make my money back? Well, that's self-doubt. They don't know that they can perform under the lead system, and that's okay. I mean, guys, you got to understand, a lot of people that we talk to like the idea of working for themselves, but have never worked for themselves, and this is a jump into the deep end of the pool for them, and that may be pretty scary. That may not be something that they're ready to do. So how can an interview end? Well, it's going to end really a couple of different ways, 3 different ways. Number one, it can be no, and we should be the ones saying, I don't think this is a good fit. Or they can say it too, as far as that goes. If they don't like what they hear, that's fine. But I don't think this is a good fit. Appreciate your application, but let's part ways. Most likely it's going to end with a couple of different things. Number one, an onboarding. So if you don't have an onboarding link, get with your mentor. We can either set one, we will set one up for you, but in the interim, we may have to send some through for you. So we'll get you an onboarding link, or sometimes it gets down to the end. I don't like to send out an onboarding if I get a feeling that there's still some question on their part. So if they're like, yeah, it sounds good, but I really need to talk to my wife, mother, brother, whatever. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let me send you a little bit of follow-up information, look it over, and then get back with me here in a day or two, and let's see if this makes sense moving forward. If that's an okay outcome, is sending them more information for them to do some more homework. Because again, we're really looking for people who are ready to move forward. So if I send somebody an onboarding, I send them the link to sign up and get their information filled out. If you don't get that back, and let me back up for a second. I'm going to send it back, send them the onboarding link, but I'm going to tell them, hey, this only takes about an hour to fill this out. Is there any reason that you can get this back to me by the end of the day? Or within the next 24 hours, however you want to handle that, okay? A lot of times, if they have something going, they say, "Well, I'm out for the rest of the day, but I can get to it tonight or in the morning." That's fine, as long as we have an agreed upon time frame for them to get that back. If I haven't got it back within that time frame, I will do one reach out. Just, hey, want to make sure, shoot them a text, shoot them an email. Want to make sure that you got the link I sent you. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're like, yeah, I never saw it come through. Okay, well, that something broke in the interweb somewhere, so we got to send them another link. That's fine. If they did get the link, how's that response come back? Yeah, I got the link. I'm sorry. Something came up at work and I got really busy. I'll get to it. I promise. I really apologize. Okay, that's somebody I'm still going to keep in the pipeline. If it's, yeah, I got the link. I just haven't got to it. Okay, now that puts a red flag on my mind. This is not somebody that's really serious. I'm not going to invest a lot more energy in following up on that one. Okay. Work with those people who are going to move their feet. Guys, that's what you want to look for, is those people where you send them something and then you get something back. Either get a response back or get a question, hey, that's done, what's next? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for those people who are willing to move their feet and get stuff done. Okay. And so that's what you're going to watch through the recruiting process. Whenever I assign them a task, I give them clear expectations. Here's what you need to do. Here's how you do it. Here's where you find the resources to do that. And then send them on their way. And if they show back up within 24 to 48 hours and say, okay, that's done, what's next? Pay very close attention to that person. That's who you want to work with. If they disappear for a week and they come back and, okay, now what was I supposed to do again? What can you tell me? Can you walk me through this? We've got problems. That's not somebody that's going to. This is a business where you got people who are proactive. They're going to take the ball and run with it, and then come back and say, "Okay, coach, I did that. What's next?" That's who we want to work with. Okay, guys. Big tip here, and I'm going to wrap up with this. One of the, you've heard this say, well, if you've been around, some of you may have not heard this because unfortunately, we haven't had the ability to do conferences or anything live, any of our live meetings. But this system is caught, not taught. This system is caught, not taught, meaning plug them into the system. And for us right now, especially, get them on conference calls. Get them on the Monday sales call, the Wednesday national call, get them on this call. Get your new recruits the opportunity to expose themselves to the system. Find out what the culture is about. Find out what the people are like. And that's going to give them more assurance that they're on the right track. And that's going to result in them, if they're the right person, that's going to result in them taking more action to get stuff done and become a part of the process. So the next call, this was this is just setting the table for the recruiting. Next call, and I don't know if I'll do this or one of our other hosts will do this. It may be my next turnaround. We'll talk a little bit about coaching. Once we get somebody on board, okay, now what? You got a baby. You got a baby agent. How are you going to raise them up? How are we going to get them into production? But beyond production, how do we get them into success? Okay. So stay tuned for that, guys. Really want to return our focus back to the fundamentals of this business moving forward and making sure that, whatever you came in for, whether if it's sales success, great. And again, I said, disclaimer at the beginning of the call, this was not a sales call. This is about building an agency. But if you want to build an agency, I just laid out for you the fundamental steps. Hopefully you wrote them down. Now go apply them. Go apply them. Be consistent. I'm going to say that till I'm blue in the face because I can tell you right now, guys, I've said it many times. I cannot tell you how many mistakes I've made in this business and how many things that I've tried that just absolutely have fallen flat, haven't worked. But the one thing that I have done right, and this goes back, all credit to Jacob Poe, was that first conversation we had. He said, whatever you do, do it every week. Do not miss a week. That is 100% on the agency side. That's 100% the reason why people fail in this business. Because I can't tell you, it may happen in the next 12 months, but it may not. It may be 2 years. It may be 5 years, maybe 12 years, guys. Some businesses just don't take off as fast as others. I could point to some people, and I wouldn't call out any names. I can point to some people that started in symmetry early on, while this is still a baby company, and they just within the last 3 years have reached the top levels. Not that they were, doing anything wrong or not qualified or what, who knows what the reason is. They hit roadblocks along the way, and we all do. The problem and the reason, the thing that I think pains me most is when I see somebody come in with a dream and a vision and wanting to have success, but they tap out of the game too early. Okay, and if you tap out of the game, you're not going to finish the game. That's the problem. So if you make the decision right now that no matter how long this takes, I'm going to stay in the game, you will win. I'm confident of that. I think everybody on this call will win if they just stay in the process long enough. And again, I can't tell you. I mean, there's a lot of it has to do with personal development and being willing to try things, invest in yourself, invest time, invest money, and there's a lot of moving pieces in this. But at the end of the day, it comes down to who stays the course and who sticks with it. Okay, guys, we are actually kind of surprised. I didn't know that I would fill up a full hour with this. I kind of thought I'd be done a little bit early, but apparently I got a little long-winded. But hopefully this was valuable to you. If you want to get a deeper dive, get with your upline. Let's do some one-on-one coaching. Let's figure out where you're at in your process, what tweaks we need to make, if there are any. Usually it comes down to consistency. I'm going to say it over and over again. Usually it comes down to consistency. There are things that we can train and work on in the process that will help you with your results, but 9 times out of 10, it comes down to consistency. So guys, make the decision, do the process, do it over and over again, and put your head down and until you look up and you've got a machine that's building on its own. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Let's go out. Let's finish out the week strong. We've got the rest of the day. It's 12 o'clock Eastern to turn business in. And excited about wrapping up and starting up the new year. So thank you, everybody.